You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by martinclinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about yeast, all things yeast. And I don't mean brewer's yeast. I'm talking about Candida albicans, something that I see in the office every day. It's part of leaky gut. We're going to talk about Candida, yeast, and how prevalent it is, and what causes it, okay? What causes yeast? What causes a yeast? Now, ladies, you know all about this because women, it is not unusual for a woman in her lifetime, perhaps several times in their lifetime, would get a yeast infection. And so they know what that's all about, right? In their reproductive organs, it can be quite common. Usually happens after taking an antibiotic. And by the way, antibiotics, the greatest discovery of the 20th century, has become like a curse of the 21st because of all the problems. And one of the biggest problems with taking antibiotics is that because it kills your good bacteria. See, an antibiotic is always, like friendly fire. It kills everything in its path. And again, you know me, I'm not against antibiotics. As a matter of fact, if you got an infection going on, you need to take an antibiotic. I mean, it can save your life. So I'm certainly not against it. The issue with antibiotics is the overuse of antibiotics and the fact that millions and millions of people in North America take antibiotics, and the doctor doesn't tell them, look, you need to take a probiotic with it and then after, because they never think of the consequences of getting a yeast or a fungal infection afterwards. And you might think, what's the big deal with yeast? Well, it's never good. It's never good because there are some of my colleagues that believe, for example, that every cancer is fungal based. I think it was Jeanette that showed me an article this week of they're showing now antifungals like antibiotics are not working like they used to, and that fungi develop a resistance to even these antifungals. And isn't that amazing? Because again, they're being overused. And the yeast, the fungi, they have a brain. They're an organism, and they develop resistance just like antibiotics. Now you have all these superbugs, C. difficile and others, that they have developed a resistance to antibiotics. And this is why where antibiotics at one time would wipe out all infections, today, a lot of people still die in the hospital from complications of surgery and that. And it's usually because they have developed a secondary infection. And the antibiotics, the infection that they got, especially in the hospital, is resistant to antibiotics. And the infection goes sepsis and people die. It's amazing what's happening today in our society because of the overuse of that. And doctors, even they often still don't get the message. Don't give an antibiotic out for something that is viral. It's viral. Antibiotics don't work for virus. Oh yeah, but I got better. Yeah, but it wasn't the antibiotic. You would have got better anyways. You had a virus. Almost every ear infection for kids, listen parents, almost every ear infection is viral. It's not bacterial. And you start the children on antibiotics and then they get digestive problems years later. And it's because, look, it was a virus. I like what a lot of doctors do. They give them an antihistamine to take the pressure out of the ears and take some, for a few days, take some Tylenol and that, and just to get the pain levels down because it's a virus. It will eradicate itself. But you rush, look, your kid's got an ear infection. It's painful. They're crying their lights out. And I understand that as a parent and a grandparent. I got great sympathy for that. But doctors need to understand if it's not bacterial, they're making a huge mistake because people are developing a resistance to antibiotics. This is a scourge of the 21st century here. Okay, it is. Antibiotics are not going to work anymore. And they're going to have to use more and more and more and more and more. And there's going to come a time when they're hardly going to work. And, you know, we did that to ourselves by over-prescribing antibiotics when antibiotics were not needed. It was viral. And a lot of chest infections and a lot of sinus infections. And they're not bacterial, they're viral. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are fungal. They're fungal. They start with a yeast or a fungus. Okay, so let me just go through another couple of reasons that we have a lot of yeast today, a lot of candida. Look at your tongue. Stick your tongue out in the morning in front of the mirror, okay? Stick your tongue out. Look at it. You see white coating. You have a yeast. You have a fungus growing inside your body. And, you know, maybe you don't even notice it. But let me, first of all, go through the causes. So number one, why it's so prevalent today is the overuse of antibiotics. And even if it's not overused, if you take 1 5-day antibiotic, and by the way, they still say take your antibiotics until you finish. So if they give you 7 days, take 7 days. Well, I look, the new research is showing that that's not true. You should take an antibiotic until your symptoms go away. Because they used to say, if you don't finish it, it's going to come back. No, as a matter of fact, it's the opposite. When you finish it, you're killing all your good bacteria. Now you're suppressing your immune system. It's making it worse. So if you, ladies, you know, we're going to talk about this in more detail, but a lot of times you take an antibiotic for a urinary tract infection, and that's very common. And most of the time, it's a yeast infection. It's not even bacteria. Bacteria sits on top of the yeast. So you kill the bacteria, you feel better. Then it comes back. Then it repeats itself because you made the problem worse with the antibiotic, because now you even created more candida, more yeast. Okay, so when I say Candida albicans, it's one of the most common fungus or yeast infections in the human body. There are others, but this is the one that we see the most, and that's for the sake of talking about yeast, that's when I say Candida, I mean yeast, okay? So number one, the overuse of antibiotic. Here's another one, the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Yes. Things like Advil and aspirin and whatever, you take it, and look, a lot of people live on that stuff. And look, I understand you got chronic pain or whatever, but just understand you're not taking a vitamin. They kill your friendly bacteria in your body. So if you're taking a painkiller, and hopefully only temporarily, you want to, an over-the-counter or Celebrex or any kind of anti-inflammatory non-steroidal that's not a steroid, and steroids, by the way, kill your good bacteria too. So, you know, when you're taking those asthma pumps, and if there's any steroid in there, vasodilators, vasobronchial dilators, they kill your good bacteria. It starts in the mouth. They kill your good bacteria. That's one of their big side effects. You need, listen, let me just explain this again, okay? There is a war inside your body that goes on every day. There's a war. There's two armies in your body. There's good guys, good bacteria, and bad bacteria. And there's a war. They look at each other, okay? And as long as they're equal, you win. If you have more good guys than bad guys, you really win. But when you take an antibiotic or a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, you take Advil, you take, look, Tylenol is not a non-steroidal, it's acetaminophen, but it doesn't matter. It still kills your friendly bacteria. And what happens? You take that, you got a headache. I got it. I understand that. But just understand what happens. Now you're killing the good army, and the good army goes down, and the bad army, the bad bacteria start, and especially in the gut, it happens all through your sinuses, wherever there's mucus. Bacteria live in mucus. They love that environment. But when the armies, your good guys get down here, your bad guys are up here, a third army comes into your body. It sneaks in. It's called yeast, fungus, the first cousin of mold, because mold is a fungi. And it comes into your body, maybe with no real symptoms. And then one of the symptoms might be, hey, doc, I got a real craving for sugar. Okay, it's because you have yeast, you have fungus, you have candida, and it flourishes. Don't feed the bears because it eats sugar. And when you're having crappy carbohydrates, and especially sugar that's added to your foods. Oh, doc, I have yogurt every day. Did you read the label? It's full of sugar. Quit eating yogurt. It's white Pepsi. So is milk. Have Pepsi instead. Tastes better. How many women start their day with yogurt? Ooh, I can't handle it. It's a terrible food because of what the food industry has done to it. Now, if you have Greek plain, I know you're coming to me with, oh, doc, I have Greek plain. Yeah, I don't like yogurt. It's white Pepsi, in my opinion. It's pasteurized. Make your own yogurt if you want to eat yogurt, okay? The store-bought stuff is pasteurized at 1200 degrees. There's no bacteria in it. It's white Pepsi. Okay, anyway. So the use of antibiotics, the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So you got the army thing. You take an antibiotic for 5 days. The army, your good army goes here. Your bad army is winning the war, and the third army comes into your body. It's yeast. It's a fungus. It's like having mold in your house. Do you think mold is good for anybody? No, it's not. It's very toxic, right? You can't see it. Well, maybe you could see it in your bathroom or your basement, but you should be able to smell a mold. And if you don't, if you've ever had water in your house or whatever, you just assume that you got mold in there. And it can be very deadly, mold, right? Especially black mold and that. But a fungal or a yeast or candida that goes into your body can be very deadly too. It's just a slow death because the army, the third army that comes in, the yeast, on the way by, the bad bacteria are giving them high fives, by the way. Hey, thanks for letting us in. Okay, we thank you. And they come in and they take over your gut. And they start to get into your bloodstream, and because you got no more friendly bacteria, so they sneak into your bloodstream, and then they become systemic, and they go everywhere, and they get into your brain. And we talked about this before, what MS is. Autoimmune is a yeast infection. You know how many people I see today with lichen planus or MS, and they're showing even Parkinson's. Parkinson's, guys, is an autoimmune disorder, in my opinion. It's yeast in the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets into the brain, and it attacks the nervous system, very much like MS is. And MS is an autoimmune disease caused by leaky gut. And I believe, okay, and this is me, and you can argue with me. That's all right. I like you guys. I want you to think on your own. But I believe that this is why I say antibiotics are the greatest discovery of the 20th century and now are the curse of the 21st. because Dr. Martin believes that yeast fungus is at the root of all autoimmune disease. It's leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky gut, leaky joints, rheumatoid arthritis, leaky gut, leaky skin, psoriasis, eczema. That is a fungal infection. And then you take steroids. And you know what, Doc? It helped. Yes, temporarily, because it lowered your inflammation. A steroid is an anti-inflammatory. And I get it. If your joints, they're severe and you got severe inflammation, I understand. You know, that the doctors want to treat the inflammation. I get it. But they're making it worse because they're making yeast grow even more inside the body. And so it becomes the curse of the 21st. Autoimmune is out of control today. Eczema, psoriasis, skin, leaky gut, yeast becomes systemic, and your body's smart. They're just trying to put it out on your skin. And rosacea, it's autoimmune, it's leaky gut. And I believe, this is me, okay? You might disagree with me. And respectfully, I mean this, that I love you guys, so you can disagree. I believe, Dr. Martin believes, that autism is leaky gut. The canary in the coal mine baby in the placenta. Fungus gets into the placenta. Yeast. Mommy had to take some antibiotics. Maybe a year before she got pregnant, or was taking painkillers. Even over-the-counter stuff like Advil and stuff like that, and over-the-counter common Motrin and other things. They take it. Hey, I got headaches. I understand. The problem is, I believe in my heart of hearts that that's what causes autism. Autism is a fungal infection. It's a yeast infection of those poor little babies, and the canary in the coal mine is what. And then, they in their second year, or sometimes they can see it very early in kids, they've got autistic issues. The mummy had leaky gut. Leaky placenta. The fungus goes through the mummy into baby's placenta and attacks the baby. You can't see it. Medicine doesn't understand it. And instead of getting every mummy during her pregnancy should be taking probiotics, 100% broad spectrum probiotics. You need probiotics. So the third army, the yeast doesn't come in. And then what happens? You get a start of yeast. You have sugar cravings. We live in a world that Canadians are consuming almost 200 pounds, and the Americans are worse. They're worse. They're consuming more than 200 pounds of sugar a year. That feeds your Candida albicans. It goes crazy. It loves sugar. So what happens? Now the yeast takes off. It's in the bloodstream, goes to the brain, can go to the skin, can go to the joints. It suppresses the immune system. It suppresses your thyroid. It suppresses your adrenal glands because it becomes systemic. It throws even the thyroid off. So those are the major causes of it. There's other things that kill your friendly bacteria too, like aspartame and sucralose and stuff like that. Those artificial sweeteners, they kill your friendly bacteria. They strip away your good bacteria. So what are some of the symptoms? What are some of the symptoms that you should look for? Sinusitis, chronic, stuffed up all the time. One of the most common symptoms. It's yeast. It's fungus. Oh, Doc, I got allergies. Why do you have allergies? Why do we see so much more allergies today than we ever used to? It's yeast. It's fungal. Yes. Listen, that's why there's so much food, even the food intolerances. So many people, oh, doc, I'm intolerant to gluten. I got gluten schmooten. You're not so much intolerant to gluten. It's because you got an overgrowth of yeast in your body, and your body's overreacting. By the way, whenever you're eating gluten, it's almost always like bread, pasta, rice, cereals. You know, rice doesn't have gluten, but all your carbs, your cereals. Doc, I got to have my cereal. Otherwise, I don't go poo. Well, don't go poo. Quit eating that sugary cereal. I know, I'm a little dramatic. Chronic fatigue. Look for a yeast infection, because I've never seen a case of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia that doesn't have leaky gut and a yeast infection. You're always clearing your throat. You got postnasal drip, and that's due to yeast. You got bloating. Think of what yeast does. Yeast, you can make bread rise with yeast. True or false? It's true, isn't it? Well, think about what happens when it overtakes your gut because you don't have enough friendly bacteria. The third army invaded your gut. And guess what? Cramps and bloating. And you know what? Even SIBO. You know, if you don't know what that is, medicine calls it SIBO. Well, most doctors don't even believe in it, but it's an infection of the small intestine, but it's yeast. It's not bacterial. Oh, doc, I took an antibiotic because I had SIBO. Oh, yeah, but that didn't fix it. It actually made it worse. It's going to come back with a vengeance. You might have got some relief, but it makes it worse. You have difficulty concentrating. You got yeast in your brain. Leaky gut, leaky brain, chronic fatigue. That's why they get the exhaustion, and it's part of it is that leaky gut that attack the adrenals. You got thyroid issues, and your throat is swelling, and your doctor says, "Oh, your numbers are good, but you have all the symptoms. You're losing your hair, and you don't feel good, and your eyebrows, ladies, and you're gaining weight." And a lot of times it's yeast that's attacked the thyroid gland, and it's part of leaky gut and others. Obviously, not always, but a lot of times digestive issues, chronic constipation or diarrhea, or sometimes constipated and sometimes diarrhea, gas and bloating. We talked about that. Acne, bad skin. Look, hormones make it worse, especially estrogen. But you always, if you have acne, you always have leaky gut. Leaky gut. You have yeast. And you know what? And sometimes, they give you an antibiotic because it's bacteria, but it's yeast underneath it. Quit taking antibiotics for skin. It's fungal. It makes it worse. It'll give you some relief, but it's going to create an enormous yeast infection throughout the rest of your body. Irritability, even mood swings, it can affect you. Intense. I get women, they go buy Laura Secords and they want to do a swan dive. They have such cravings for sugar and chocolate, especially women. Men don't get that type of cravings, but women, it's yeast. I talked about recurring urinary tract infections. Listen to me, ladies, please listen. If you're getting recurring urinary tract infections, it's not bacteria. It's not bacteria. It's fungus. The bacteria, the E. coli that might be there is sitting on top of the yeast. So I'm not telling you not to take look, you got burning and it's killing you. Okay, take an antibiotic for a couple of days, but double up your probiotics. Take 6-8 probiotics a day. You're better off to try and fight that. Look, if you got severe burning, listen, I get it. Take an antibiotic for 1 or 2 days. Soon as the burning goes away, it's all probiotic, and double up, triple up your dosage if you have to. Chronic sinusitis. chronic, trying to clear your throat, even lungs. Asthma in kids is yeast. It's yeast. Look at what we're seeing. You know, when I was a kid, I said this to Tony Jr. yesterday, in the 1950s when I was in school, in the early 60s when I was in grade school and that, nobody had asthma. Nobody. Asthma? What was asthma? Nobody had it. Nobody had peanut allergies either. Nobody. Nada. None. I mean it. I never saw it. Asthma wasn't around in the 1950s. Now you got all these allergies and people are there. They're stuffed up all the time and coughing and barking. Kids, I know they got food intolerances too, and they're probably allergic to dairy. But why are they allergic to dairy? Well, first of all, dairy isn't dairy like it used to be. But anyway, it's yeast. It's fungus. And they're sugarholics and they're feeding the yeast. That's where you get asthma. Ear infections after ear infections in kids. You got to treat the fungus, guys. You got to treat the yeast. Athlete's foot. Well, of course, you know that. That's a fungus. How much more do we see of that today? And I get doctors, well, you can never get yeast in your, you can never get fungus in your blood. It will kill you. Yeah, they're right. It will kill you eventually. Right? But it drives me crazy how medicine never looks for fungus. Half of the stuff that's in their hospitals, they're not even bacterial, they're fungal infections. And that's why they're so hardy and they're so serious today. Anyway, but you got toe fungus. Well, why do doctors even treat it? Oh, yeah, it looks awful. But in a man, so what? You got a toe fungus. You know why they treat it? Because they know they can't let that get into your bloodstream. It could kill you. But they forget that. A toe fungus. Yeah, it can be very serious and very dangerous. And the problem is with the antifungals they give, they can kill you too. You know, they give you an antifungal for a toe fungus, and the side effects are legion. I mean, you know, if you ever go to a pharmacist, he'll say, you got to be very careful with this. It's going to destroy your liver. Yeah, that's why you got to take probiotic. Put the probiotics in there. And oil of oregano. Chronic congestion, I talked about that. The white coating on the tongue. Headaches. A lot of times headaches can be yeast, a fungal infection. I know there's hormones and everything else. So what do you do? What do you do? That is why at the Martin Clinic, you know us, we've been preaching for years and years and years, preaching probiotics, probiotics, probiotics. Everybody, including your dog, give them probiotics and make sure they're broad spectrum, that they have especially the L. reuteri and the L. rhamnosus strain, and that they're broad spectrum, they're soil-based probiotics, that they last forever. Put them in your body. I take them every day, guys. Every day I take probiotics. It's important. Probiotics will save your life. One of the most important fundamental supplements. It always astonishes me when I talk to people and they're not taking probiotics. Oh, doc, I take vitamin C and, I take a multivitamin. So what? What's that doing? Who cares? I take a multivitamin. Yeah. I give my kids multivitamins. Yeah. Why? Like most of them are gummy bears. They're not enough for a mouse. A mouse couldn't get benefits from most of the multivitamins that are out there. They're terrible, in my opinion. Anyway, but you need, if you do nothing else, take a probiotic. You need to take probiotics, and they ain't in yogurt. One little capsule of our probiotic, you'd have to have 16,000 4-ounce containers of Yoplait or whatever else, Dename or what's some of the other names of, You'd have to have 16,000 yogurts to take one capsule to meet one capsule of our probiotics. 16,000. Oh, doc, I have yogurt every morning. Well, that's stupid. Why do you eat yogurt every morning? It's a useless food, in my opinion. Anyway, I hate to go down that route because so many of you still like yogurt. It bothers me. It's the choice of women in Canada and probably the United States of America. They still eat yogurt because they believe the lie of the marketing strategy of the yogurt companies. And by the way, there's only about 7 companies, nutritional food, I don't call them nutrition, food companies left, and they buy up everybody else and they market and market and market. This is good for you, by the way, and probiotics in yogurt. What nonsense. Well, as soon as they pasteurize at 1200 degrees and nothing on the shelf has not been pasteurized, they kill all the bacteria. There's none left. Zero, nada. There's no more bacteria left in yogurt. Come on. That heat kills those bacteria. Never meant to go through 1200 degrees. So what do? Broad spectrum probiotics. Take them every day. If you have to take antibiotics, double up your dose. I had a little bit of a sinus infection and I took an antibiotic for 1 day. I didn't even take 2 of them. I took 1. Pain subsided a little bit and I tripled up my probiotics for about a week and it cleared those sinuses up. And you know what? If you got chronic sinusitis, you got to be on probiotics and you should be on oil of oregano. There's nothing that kills fungus like oil of oregano. Probiotics, they build your good army up. And the L. reuteri and the rhamnosus especially, they go after the yeast. They go after that third army. And they keep the bad bacteria at bay. So you're building up your good army. You need billions and billions. You need trillions of bacteria. So, Doc, I heard at the health food store or online, I heard, well, your body gets used to probiotics. Why would you take probiotics every day? Your body gets used to it. No, they don't. Your body doesn't get used to it. You're feeding an army. You need the more good guys you have, the more you win. The more you win. You should take it every day. Let it be part of your life. We live in a world with all these chemicals, and that's another thing that strips away your bacteria. As the plastics come into your body and these xenoestrogens, they destroy your friendly bacteria. You need a good army. So feed the army and take oil of oregano. I brush my teeth with oil of oregano every day, every day, every day. I put it on my toothbrush or I put it in my water pick. I put some oil of oregano in there. And oil of oregano only kills the bad guys. It don't kill the good guys. How do you like that? It's God's spice. It's in nature. Imagine a very powerful antiviral, antifungal, antibiotic is oil of oregano. Oil of oregano, you owe me money. Send me check. I had a guy tell me, this is years ago when I did my radio show every day in Sudbury in Northern Ontario. He said the highest sales of oil of oregano are in Sudbury. Thanks to you, Dr. Martin, because I put oil of oregano on the map. Okay. But I love oil of oregano. I have never found anything like tea tree oil and not. It's not as good. It's good. It's good. Colloidal silver, good. It is good. But it ain't oil of oregano. It ain't. Oil of oregano, an essential oil. It's a tremendous oil. I love it. So use that. Don't be scared of it. I like it even if you got bad sinuses. I call it spray and pray. You know, an oil of oregano, don't just do it yourself. Like get the stuff that's been diluted because you're still going to pray. And, you know, you need that. So, and cut out the sugars. Nada, no sugar. No sugar. You can have fruit. Fruit doesn't feed candida. They like garbage sugar. They like your donuts. They like your muffins. They like your bagels. They like your candy. They like your milk chocolate. They like crappy carbohydrates. That's what feeds yeast. Yeast is bottom feeders. They're like a parasite. Inside your body, they act like a parasite. What's worse, a parasite or yeast? Yeast is worse, in my opinion, because it will spread throughout your body. Parasites, when they get into your blood, can cause lots of havoc. But I'll tell you, what's worse is yeast, because it's very systemic. It is very dangerous. It doesn't kill you right away, but it causes major, major issues in the body. Okay, so the rant is over. I love you guys. Look, if you want me to talk, you know what? One of the reasons I did this morning, because you asked me to talk about it. You sent, if you hopefully you belong to the Martin, our little club, the Martin Clinic Club. We have a club and a lot of people, we got some great conversations going on there. Lots of information. People are sharing their recipes and stuff like that. If you haven't joined that, don't ask me how to join it. I don't know. It's got to be on our website somewhere, I think. I don't know. Don't ask. I just work here. Okay. I love you guys. Prayerfully, we'll see each other next week. Okay. Lord willing. Thanks for watching my rant. I should call it not the doctor is in. I think I'll call it the Dr. Martin rant. Share this with your friends. Okay. This is much appreciated. And, this information, I think, I know you guys agree, is very valuable. Hey, love you guys.
You've reached the end of another Doctor Is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.